There was a version of you that someone fell in love with, not the version you perform at work, not the version that shows up at family dinners. A specific, particular version of you, raw, unguarded, still figuring things out. And someone looked at that version and thought, that one. That's the one I want. They chose you, not your potential, not the idea of you. You, the actual, imperfect, real you that existed in that specific window of time. And here's the question nobody asks out loud, the one that lives underneath every long relationship like a quiet hum you've learned to ignore. Are you still that person? Not better, not more successful, not more responsible or more put together. Are you still the person they fell in love with? Or did that person quietly leave the building while you were both busy living your life? Because here's what nobody tells you about being chosen. It's not a one-time event. It's a door that has to keep being opened. And most people don't realize the door has slowly swung shut until someone's already standing on the other side of it. Think about how it started, not the relationship. The moment. The specific moment before the relationship had a name. You were different then. Not younger necessarily. Just lighter. More present. More willing to be seen. You laughed at things you'd now scroll past. You asked questions you'd now assume the answers to. You showed up to conversations the way you used to show up to things that genuinely excited you. Leaning forward, paying attention, with nothing else pulling at the back of your mind. And they noticed all of it. Every single piece of it. They noticed the way you got animated when you talked about something you cared about. The way you listened. Actually listened, like the words they were saying were landing somewhere inside you instead of just bouncing off. They noticed the version of you that hadn't yet decided to protect itself so carefully that that's who they fell for. Now think about who shows up in your relationship today. Maybe you still love them. Maybe you love them more than you ever have. But the version of you that walks through the door after work, is that person still bringing what they fell in love with? Or are you running on empty and calling it normal? Are you half present and telling yourself you'll be more here when things slow down? Here's the part that stings. Things don't slow down. You just keep waiting for a quieter chapter that never arrives. And meanwhile, the person who chose you is still there, still watching, still hoping for a glimpse of the person they said yes to. Most couples don't fall out of love in a dramatic moment. They fall out of love on ordinary Wednesday afternoons. When someone reaches for connection and gets distracted by silence in return. When someone tries to be funny and nobody laughs. When someone says, "I missed you today," and the response is, "Yeah, crazy day," without a single follow-up question. Not cruelty. Just absence. And absence, over time, is its own kind of answer to "Here's what I got wrong about this for a long time. The story I used to believe was that relationships end because people change. That two people grow in different directions, drift apart, want different things. That's the clean version. The version that makes everybody blameless. But that's not actually what happens in most cases. Most relationships don't end because people change. They end because one person, or both, stopped letting the other person see the change. They kept updating on the inside and went dark on the outside. Think about someone you know who went through a quiet transformation in a long relationship. Maybe it was you. New fears arrived that never got named. Old dreams were quietly shelved without a conversation. Something happened, a loss, a disappointment, a moment of pride swallowed hard. And instead of bringing it to the relationship, it went into a private folder. Marked internal, not for sharing. And on the outside, everything looked the same. They still showed up, still did the things, still said the right words at the right moments. But the person doing all of it had shifted. And their partner was still loving the previous version, the one frozen in amber from 3 years ago, while the current person went quietly unseen. That is not dramatic. That is not villainous. That is just what happens when two people stop showing each other who they're becoming. And here's where the real tension lives. Your partner didn't just choose the person you were. They chose the experience of being with you. The experience of feeling like they knew you, like they had access to you, like the real you, not the curated, managed, everything is fine you, was available to them. The moment that access quietly closes, the experience changes. They might not be able to name it. They might still say, "I love you," and mean it. But something will feel different, slightly further away, like they're touching glass instead of skin. And the slow accumulation of that feeling, that's not falling out of love. That's what unchoosing looks like before either person has used that word. Most people figure this out too late. Not because they weren't paying attention, Because they were looking for the wrong signals entirely. They were watching fights. For coldness. For obvious distance. While the real signal was something much quieter. Something happened in the small moments long before the big ones arrived. By the time you finish the next part of this, you will not be able to look at those small moments the same way again. Here's the revelation. Not a tip. Not a strategy. A revelation. Your partner didn't choose you because you were perfect. They chose you because with you, they felt like they were becoming more themselves. Read that again slowly. They felt more like themselves with you around. More alive. More seen. More willing to say the things they'd been keeping quiet. More capable of being the version of themselves they actually liked. That's what being chosen really means. It's not about what you looked like or what you said on the best dates. It's about what they became in your presence. You were a mirror that showed them something good. And here's what unchoosing actually is, because it's not what most people think. Unchoosing is not falling for someone else. Unchoosing is not a dramatic decision made in a moment of clarity. Unchoosing is quieter than that. It's the slow withdrawal that happens when someone no longer feels like the best version of themselves in your presence, when they start editing themselves around you, when they stop bringing the unfinished thoughts because the finished thoughts were already met with half attention, when they stop reaching for the small things because the small things keep going unnoticed, when being with you stops feeling like expansion and starts feeling like maintenance. That's the moment. That's the unchoosing before it has a name. And here's the hardest part of this to sit with. It's almost never one person's fault, because what usually happens is this. Life gets heavy. You both get busy. You start running the relationship on autopilot. Not because you stopped caring, but because caring got expensive and autopilot was free. And while you were both on autopilot, quietly, invisibly, something essential went untended. The mirror went dark. You stopped reflecting on each other. You stopped being the person in whose presence the other person became more themselves. You became familiar, necessary, deeply loved, even, but no longer the mirror. And the thing about mirrors going dark is that nobody announces it. Nobody sends a message that says, I've stopped showing up as myself with you. They just stop, gradually, in ways so small they look like nothing, until you look back and realize you haven't had a conversation that surprised you in months. Until you realize you can predict everything they're going to say before they say it. Until you realize that what started as deep knowing has turned into a closed loop. A room where both of you have memorized every surface and stopped looking for new ones. That's not a bad relationship. That's a relationship that got comfortable and forgot to stay curious. So what do you do with this? Not a checklist. Not a routine. One question. The question that started everything in the first place. Who is this person becoming? Right now? Today? And am I still paying attention? Not who they were. Not who you decided they are. Who they are becoming. Because your partner is not finished. Neither are you. The person sitting across from you at dinner tonight has been quietly changing, accumulating new fears, new hopes, new versions of old wounds. And they are waiting, whether they know it or not, to find out if you're still curious enough to notice. The act of noticing is the act of choosing. Every day, in the small moments that look like nothing. A question you don't already know the answer to. A pause long enough to actually hear what comes next. A look that says, you still have my full attention. All of it. Not the leftover part at the end of the day. The real part. That is what they fell for. Not a younger version of your face. Not a lighter version of your responsibilities. The feeling of being fully seen by someone who chose to keep looking. You can still be that person, not by going back to who you were. By showing up as who you're becoming, and inviting them to do the same. The choice doesn't have to be a moment in the past. It can be a decision made tonight. Before the dishes. Before the phones. Before the day takes both of you. Somewhere else. Turn toward them. Ask something real. Let the answer surprise you. That's not romance as a concept. That's love as a practice. Think about the version of you that got chosen. That person didn't have everything figured out. They weren't at their most successful or their most polished. They were just present, available, willing to be seen without armor. That person is not gone. They got busy. They got tired. They got responsible and cautious and very good at managing a shared life. But they're still there. And the person who chose you, they're still looking for them. In quiet moments, you might be too distracted to notice. In questions you answer too quickly to really hear. In the space between what they say and what they actually mean, the door is still open. The only question worth sitting with tonight, not next week, not after things calm down, tonight, is this. What is one thing about who you're becoming right now that your partner doesn't know yet? Tell them that. Tonight. Before anything else. Before the evening becomes logistics and the conversation becomes a coordination meeting and another day passes where you were in the same room, but not really in the same place. Tell them one true, unfinished, still figuring it out thing. That's the whole experiment. One thing. See what comes back. And if you want to go deeper into why most couples wait too long to have this kind of conversation and what it costs them when they do, that's exactly where the next video starts. Subscribe, because every week this channel goes somewhere real. This content is for educational purposes only. For deeper relationship challenges, a licensed therapist or counselor will always be the most valuable conversation you can have.